should you pay business rent? All right. I'm going to ask you that question, and I seriously want you to think about, should you pay the business rent? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because, and I'm just going to take you back here a little bit, when I had this huge office, when I actually had multiple offices in the early 2000s, where I had one office here, and then you would walk down the hall, and I had another office because I had a bunch of independent contractors working for our company, and I was a broker at that time. Like I mentioned to you all before, the rent was pretty high, right? And so we were there for a while, and then of course, everyone knows that the economic crisis hit, right? The economic crisis hit, and don't worry, I see you, Marion. I'm gonna get to you, okay? The economic crisis hit, and I was stuck in these leases, right? And these huge leases, and I literally, pride, the black man's he's going to stick to his moral obligations. You know what I mean? Or at least his contractual obligations. I continued to pay rent, right? I continued to pay rent until I couldn't before. And so it literally fucked up my credit. It really did, because they came after me with a vengeance. And during the stimulus package, because back in 2008, I mean, there was a package just like there's a package today. But of course, I wasn't as quote unquote aware of being able to get money from the government to actually help my business keep going. Now, I'm asking you all this question. Well, before I share my screen with you, I'm just going to share what Marion said. Marion said, I paid for April. I'm debating about May rents though. Okay, I get you, Marion. And this is why I'm asking this question today, because let me share with you what a lot of companies are doing. All right. And like I said, always don't take my word for it, right? I always like to present you guys with some information, right? I present you with some information, and I'll let you make your own decision. Well, let me just share this with you here. So the reason why this whole thing came up is for a couple of reasons, right? Well, first, yesterday, if any of you guys know Grant Cardone, GC, Grant Cardone, people are coming after him. He owns, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, or at least controls hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate. And he has this, his company, GC Capital. Well, he literally walked in when all of this stuff was happening, and he had to lay off a bunch of people. Now, knowing how the real estate business is affected by this, like say, people are unable to pay rents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of get it, right? You got to trim the fat. Unfortunately, there's some casualties of war, because that's how I see this when you're trying to stay afloat, right? So yesterday, he had this show where he and his wife, they had this show, the G&E show, it was called Handling the Ups and Downs. And every now and then I'll make a comment. But yesterday I made a comment, and I'm going to share this with you. And guess what? Grant Cardone, with 1.3 million followers, 1.34 million followers, they literally highlighted my comment. They highlighted my comment. All right? They highlighted my comment. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool that they highlighted my comment. But I'm like, I get it, GC. I get it, Grant Cardone. I get that you have to do what you have to do. All right? You have to do what you have to do in order to get where you need to go. And I simply made the comment that most of us find out who our true friends are during moments of crisis. We find out who are considered assets to the company during moments of crisis, and we find out who are liabilities during moments of crisis. In other words, we find out those people who got our back and those people who don't. That wasn't necessarily the image I wanted to show, but if you just go to that Grant Cardone Handling the Ups and Downs, you'll see that my comment is highlighted. And out of the thousands of people the thousands of views and the people were watching this thing yesterday, and just to pick me out, I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, I decided that I would share this with you all today on who and why you should consider, and this is just my perspective, why you should not think about paying your rent this time, okay? You know, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to share my screen with you here, all right? I'm going to share my screen and show you what is going on, all right? Well, let me just say this. First and foremost, there is a clash over, I'll just read it. All right, I'll just read it. Yeah, we're moving through this. I'll just read it. I'm working with some new technology. This thing right here, I'm going to show you guys. It's called a Stream Deck. So I'm able to switch from a screen to screen to screen with the Stream Deck. So I'm just kind of working my way through. Like, I know this is not the smoothest show that I've done thus far, but be patient with me, folks. Be patient with me. So now I'm going to share my screen. All right. So let's talk specifically about rents, like people who pay rents like to a landlord. There's actually living in a property, say 1 to 4 units that say the landlord has a federally backed mortgage. Maybe it's an FHA, or maybe it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac is federally, or other federal agencies where it's backed. So let me read this to you. So this is about the CARES Act. Yes, the bill puts a temporary nationwide eviction, basically puts eviction hold in place for renters whose landlords have mortgages that are backed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and other federal agencies. About 70% of all mortgages fall in this category. If you want to figure out whether the landlord has such a mortgage, try plugging in the address, and there's a link here. And by the way, you can check out this link inside of the post. In addition, the bill stipulates that landlords cannot charge any fees or penalties for non-payment of rent. You hear me, people out there, that the landlord is talking about evicting you, tell them to kiss your ass. You know what your rights are, right? The eviction suspension applies only to non-payment, right? So if you're behind in your rent, this doesn't apply to that, right? But if, say April came up and you didn't have the money because you lost your job, this applies to that. Damaging your place is still grounds for action. Damaging your place is still ground for action. So if you damage the place, they can evict you, right? You punching holes in the wall, being a numbskull, they can evict you. Basically, this freeze lasts for 120 days after the bill passes, and the bill has already passed, right? Here we go. This is the part that affects business rent. Unfortunately, as drafted, the CARES Act does little in the way of providing direct relief for multifamily landlords. Like, say a multifamily is like 5 units and above, right? And commercial property owners whose mortgages are held by non-federally backed or non-traditional lenders generally, right? Instead, the stimulus package allocates billions of dollars for companies and individuals. Landlords can only hope to see an indirect benefit from the tenant's business, and employers getting financial assistance by way of the SBA-backed borrower-friendly loans, direct payments, and other stimuli. So let me go back to the camera here. All right, so check this out. So this simply means to you this. I really want you guys to understand this, right? Your commercial landlord, say if you're in a strip mall or whatever, can evict you, right? They can evict you. However, do know this, right? Do know that person that owns all of this real estate, there's a special provision within the CARES Act about people who own real estate. I'm not going to go into it, but just know that it's a business, right? And when you are in business and you are losing money, you have the right as a business owner to apply for these loans. So there is some form of relief, even though you as an entrepreneur or a business owner might decide not to pay rent on your space that you're leasing. The landlord can still get money. Now, speaking of landlords getting money, there are going to be landlords, and I'm off the commercial, but back to the residential. There will be landlords. There will be double dipping. They will lie and say that my person did not pay rent, and somehow they're gonna get some kind of benefit from it. Well, whether they're getting loans from the CARES Act, or they're getting some kind of write-off saying that they didn't make the money that they did. All right, but since that is not of your concern, I wouldn't even worry about it. Just as long as you're a residential person, just know that you have 6 months. You have 120 days. Okay, and I know there's a bill on the table right now, literally, that I thought would be passed today, but it hasn't as of the showing of this video, this live stream, for $484 billion. And I'm going to dig deeper into that bill as we go forward some days from now. So, but back to the original question at hand is, should you pay your business rent? Now, I am telling you, companies like what's the L brand? L brand is hold on a second. Victoria's Secret. Victoria's Secret decided that they would not pay their rent for April. In fact, Boeing even had, like, a lot of companies are not holding to their legal obligations based on what they're supposed to do. In fact, Boeing took $363 million for one of its new jets from a company. From a company that wanted to buy one of those jets, and they have not delivered. And they said they're not going to actually give the money back, at least not as of yet. But do know that if you Google large companies that have decided to not pay rent to landlords during the pandemic, you will see there are well-known companies. If I'm not mistaken, I think Dick's Sporting Goods and a bunch of other companies did not pay April's rent. So what do you do if you're a small business like that? And you know that, honestly, a lot of these big companies, they're going to get some form of relief through the CARES Act, and at least from the CARES Act 3.5, which is $485 billion. Somehow, some of that money is actually going to come to small business. Remember, small business is classified as 500 employees or less, right? Truthfully, as we learned that 3/4 of the last stimulus package, which was $300+ billion, that was dedicated to the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, a lot of that money went to big companies, all right? Meaning companies that were over medium-sized to big companies that had more than 500 employees. And a case in point would be Ruth Chris, who has like 5,000 employees. Of course, Shake Shack and some other big companies actually got a lot of that money. So, should you pay your rent? That is the question. And so my question to you is, how much of your pride is involved in this, right? Because remember, I said I made the mistake of literally trying to pay my rent, thinking like, man, this thing is going to turn around. And then they say banks were too big to fail. And that was bullshit, because all of the banks that I had all of my stuff with, they went under, right? People were going to jail. A bunch of shit happened, right? And deals that I thought would close, they did not close. And hence, I was stuck with tons of bills, and I paid all that cash out. And ultimately, my credit got extremely trashed because I was on the hook for all that. I personally guaranteed a crap load of contracts, right? And I lost money out the wazoo. Okay. But my counterparts, other guys that I knew that were in the industry, who are still in the industry to this day, they decided to take a different option. They decided to file for not Chapter 13, but Chapter 7. First of all, they had Chapter 7 protection, right? And I'm not saying anyone should file for bankruptcy. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm telling you what they did. The way that I had my company set up, I'm doing business as, I was not an LLC. I was not an S Corp. I was not a C Corp. I was none of those things. But my counterparts, they were all of those things. And they were able to come out of the situation unscathed because they basically said, F you, I'm not paying you anything. They filed chapter 7. They included all their debts in there, you know, and that was it. You know what I mean? No, I'm sorry. Chapter 11. Because I did not set myself up right. I decided that I was going to try to weather the storm and pay this. I looked up 3 months. I was out of thousands upon thousands and thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, many of my friends, my counterparts, who didn't look like me, and I'm just being honest, they were not of the same skin tone, who did not look like me, were still living their lives fairly the way that they had lived their lives before, right? I realized that I was chasing too much of my pride being associated with owning a business and having all of this, that I was trying to maintain it, right? And because I was trying to maintain it, I could not maintain it because my supplier, you know, the banks that I dealt with, they were gone, right? They were gone. So I had no suppliers, and that was it. My business was done. Ultimately, I ended up sleeping in my car for about a month. However, I have friends who had these huge houses, and they remained in their huge houses, and they're still in the business that I was in till this day because they weathered the storm because they were smarter. So I have to ask you the question, and I'm just simply posing it to you. Are you going to be smarter about this, or are you going to let pride get in your way, right? I have friends right now who literally turned, when this thing started, they say, fuck it, I'm going to shut this thing down because we don't know when we're going to come out of this. And I'm not going to constantly put money out there not knowing if I'm ever going to be able to recoup it. And I have friends that say, you know what, I'm going to weather the storm. I'm going to pay this rent. I'm going to apply for this relief through the PPP, through the SBA, PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. I'm going to get some money in the doors. And they applied and they didn't get money, right? They didn't get money because the money quickly ran out just like that. So my question to you is, what are you going to do? Now, being the smart of me, I've shared with you guys yesterday, go back and look at the live stream from yesterday, what you should and shouldn't pay for, right? I shared with you all these different ways on how to cut costs, how to use independent contractors to help you maintain your business, how to use technology, leverage technology to meet and to engage customers, to meet and engage your employees or your independent contractors, and how to handle customer service requests, all those different things I shared with you yesterday. The smart of me today, one, would not shut my business down like I did before, right? I would keep my business going, but I would do it in a smarter way. So again, if you want some of those tips that I shared yesterday, just please go down in this feed and see what you should and should not pay for, all right? During this situation, all right? During this current environment. That's what I suggest that you do. The smart of me also knows that I would definitely not fucking pay rent. I would not pay rent. I would not pay rent because having gone through it before, I realized that at the end of the day, I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars and still ended up with bad credit. And let's just face it, and I think last week's numbers was like 22 point whatever million people filed for unemployment. There's going to be a whole lot of bad credit floating around, right? Because I do believe in the act that you can freeze certain things. Like, for example, if you have student loan, you don't really have to do anything. Federally backed student loan, you don't really have to do anything. You know why? Because they automatically suspended the payments. And you know, I've gone to some expensive ass schools. I graduated from TSU. Yes, I am an alum of an HBCU. Hell yeah, HBCU. But at the same time, I did go to Boston and I did go to UMass for my graduate degrees, right? And I have two. I'm not saying that to impress you, but to impress upon you, I fucking got debt, okay? And I'm keeping it 100 with you. But I knew that I could leverage all this education to create opportunities for me. And so I'm going to pay that back. So when I went on to pay even though our company has not shut down, I went on to pay the student loan. It said payments were suspended till September. All right. So if you have a student loan, the CARES Act protects you and you don't have to make payments until September. Just go. I mean, and I'm not talking about federally backed loans, right? But I'm not talking about if you like borrowed from Discover to pay your loans. Because, by the way, Discover, I remember this from 2008. Discover will still call your ass no matter what is going on. They're trying to get their money because they get paid by the number of collections that they make. So I'm going to share a little bit with what Marion is saying. Marion say he agrees with me. Yeah. Marion, guy or lady? Okay, I'm sorry if I get it wrong. Okay, thanks for your transparency. Oh, I appreciate it. Oh, I'm keeping it 100 with you, right? I'm keeping it 100 with you because, truthfully, there are companies right now that owe us money, like thousands of dollars. They owed us thousands of dollars before this shit even happened, and I already know that they're not going to be able to pay us now, right? I know they can't pay us now. So I'm not knocking on their door saying, hey, give me my money. Although, when you guys come out of this, I really like to have our company pay for the thousands of dollars that are owed to us. However, you will not get a call from me anytime soon asking you about our money. You will not get any kind of a lawsuit from us asking you for our money. You will not get that. You know why? Because I realize that we're all in this together, right? We're all in this together. So I'm going to leave you with this. Should you or should you not pay your business rent? The only thing that I can say to you is, will you be better off on your credit as far as your credit goes? Or are you still making money? Will you be better off, say, if this thing carries on? Because they say that this environment will actually get worse somewhat in the fall. And as you know, a lot of governors are pushing to reopen, right? I'm not saying that every governor is pushing to reopen, but when you look at the governor of Georgia, and when the governor of Georgia is saying, hey, tattoo parlors, beauty salons, barbershops, they can reopen. I'm like, hell, people are all up in your face. They're all on your arms, because I got a shitload of tats all over my body, right? So I'm saying to you, you have to think about whether or not it's worth it. You have to think about whether or not, if you're in a certain state and you're watching this, because I know people watch this from all over, whether or not your creditors or your debtors can literally go after your personal funds. Okay, you have to think about that. You really do. Fortunately, I'm in Texas, and they really can't. They can, in a way. Now, keep it. I'm only sharing you my experience. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney, right? They can't go after income tax and stuff like that. I'm talking about in Texas, paychecks and stuff. They can't go after that. You get that directly deposited. However, there is a way for them to, even in Texas, to even try to lay claim to that. So you have to think about where you are right now and whether or not your creditors will be able to go into your bank accounts. And you have to think about that. So because I'm in Texas, I'm like, if I was in that same situation like I was in 2008, I would say, hell no, I would not pay. So it's up to you. Thank you all for checking out the Startup Junkie. Wow, so many people in the room stayed on for a while. Hey, I appreciate you, okay? Do me a favor. Please share this post, all right? Please share it. If you can get past the survey that I asked you on whether or not I should read all my wife's books, then all the rest after that is very, very good in terms of content that you need to know as a business owner. And like I even shared with those people who say rent an apartment, rent from a landlord, you're even protected in the CARES Act, okay? You're protected from eviction in so many different ways, all right? At least for 120 days, all right? So please share this. And be sure to check out the Startup Junkie live show as we multi-stream Monday through Friday. We get started between 11 and 11:30 a.m. I'm making that clear now. But you can always catch the Startup Junkie podcast on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, as well as iHeart Media. So until tomorrow, everyone, where I promise to you I will have a better understanding of my new Stream Deck, and so I'll have a smoother show. So I appreciate you guys being patient with me. Don't know what tomorrow's topic is going to be, but it'll definitely be relevant. Take care.
Bye.